yeah, the last time is today. And I hope, I mean, leadership is for me so a key element. I discovered this too late in my life. I hope you discovered it earlier. But in your age, I was so motivated to run for my ministry, and I think I can change the world. But I forgot really leadership, and then I looked back and nobody was following me. And I say, what's that? What's the problem? I am so smart. I want to change the world, but nobody is following me. So when there is no leadership, we really not can build a world. And so I hope you understand our passion, our motivation, and probably the teaching was good or a bit less. But I mean, the motivation behind this, we want to equip you. And one of the main points in leadership is adding value to people, invest in people. And this should be the main thing that came out through the course. To be a leader means to add value to people, invest in people. As the quality of a leader can be determined by how much you see others first and yourself. And when you follow this principle, then you already do a lot, I tell you, then you already do a lot. If you understand that life is not just about you, we are born for a higher purpose than ourselves, then life can really start. Yeah, today we have a new topic, and this is also one of a very important topic, and we put it on the end of our lectures because it should help you to understand how change really can happen and help us to have a reflection on the course itself. So I open now a PowerPoint. So here you can read that the value of reflection and evaluation of experience. And at the end of the course or end of today, I mean, I can give you already the conclusion. I want to help you to understand how important it is. That you put a high value of reflection and evaluation of your experience. So I choose this picture just to give a visual teaching. So when you come now and saw these stones on this board, then you can say, okay, it's in balance. So that means 4 stones are equal 1 stone. But this is not true because because this 1 stone is further away from the 1 stone who hold the paddle than the other 4 stones, and therefore it's in balance. So you have to think and not just look to it, take the experience and say, okay, 1 stone is equal 4 stones. So often is something behind it, why things are like this or why things are different. And so we have to learn to think, and to learn to think is we need to reflect and evaluate what we learned, what we heard, and also our experience. So change only can happen if we understand what is wrong. And that's easy to understand, or you cannot change something when you not see that it's wrong. When you not see that, then you will not change it. And this only comes through evaluation. So when there would be no evaluation, you don't find out what is really wrong, and therefore you do the same mistake again. Let's say the hope for the world is to understand that we are sinners. Because when we once understand that we have to change, then change can really happen. And this you can apply in every sphere of society. I learned in my technical school as an engineer, so how a robot can take the cup. So a robot can take the cup, he cannot go, as of today, they are much better than 30 years ago in my university studies. So they cannot go direct to the cup. They don't have the ability like humans have, go direct to the cup. they go with the arms to the cup, and then they go too far, and then they have a sensor say go back, and then they go back, and then is a sensor again say go back, until they really adjust and can face the cup. So only through the evaluation of this arm or this move, it can find the cup. And I think that's a good picture for us. We have to evaluate when we really want to find out what is the problem. So, and we hear each day 8,500 words. We hear each day 250 messages. So what do we do with that? So we have inputs. We have also experience. So experience are messages. We experience things, and then we conclude things, and this will be a message that is stocking somewhere in us. So we can have good experience, but we can also have bad experience. Let's say my father never have time for me. Then you make a conclusion, you put a message in you out of this experience that is stocking in you. And so you have through your life, so every day 250 messages go through your mind, and it's always getting more and more and more. As well, minor cultural inputs. So from your culture, you have inputs, you learn, you see things, you see, let's say, corruption in your culture, and you learn from your culture, you have to be corrupt, that you have success. And so a lot of messages come through different things, but also books. And that you have, when you read books, then messages come in. When we have this teaching here, messages come in. And then a big part of all is media. Today, social media, and especially in the West, I mean, it's amazing what you hear every day. All the messages about the war in Sudan, now it's Niger, and then Ukraine and all that. And you have to process with all these kind of messages. So what's happened with these messages in your mind? When we calculate that, it's 3 million words every year. So if you are 40 years old, then it would be 120 million words that stop somewhere in your brain, or 100,000 messages. After 40 years is 400,000 messages stocking somewhere in your brain. So it symbolizes your brain, and you carry all these messages. Of course, some you forget, it can be, but scientists say that actually these all the messages stop somewhere in your head. And the question is, are they all truth? My answer, my conclusion is no, they are not. But what is true and what not? And so if you not really find it out, then it looks like, your brain looks like this, or a mess, a chaos. From messages, you hear it, and but you don't know if it's true or not. So my next question to you would be, why do you know what you know? So scientists say you know it when you hear the message more than once, twice, 3 times, then you remember that. So the message is somewhere in your brain already, but when you hear it the second time, then you start to remember it. The third time, you get it a bit more. And so that's advertising is working in this. So they say Coca-Cola once, next time, and third time. And once you have this picture of Coca-Cola in your brain, and then you buy a Coca-Cola. So this is how does it work with these messages. Especially is the message bound to your emotion, or to what you believe and what your culture is. And this is, again, take Coca-Cola. They it's amazing once to see what is the difference, the advertising of Coca-Cola in Africa or the advertising in America. It's really different. They do it in a different way because they look what is the highest emotions, what create the highest emotions in a county, what do they really believe, what is their culture, and according to that, they do the advertising because they say that stuck the most in your head, the things that you already know, that is familiar to you, and or when you really get emotional about it. So we don't have time to do this study, but this is really interesting to see how we get manipulated, or really that we remember this in our heads. But still the question is it true? But why do you know it is true? So you have messages now in your head, and probably you have messages from our teaching in your head, but why do you know is it true? And here is now that what we want to talk about it. So let's turn to Romans 12:2. It's a descent. Do you want to read that for me, please?
Said, do not be conformed to this world, but continually be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may be able to determine what God's will is, what is proper, pleasing, and perfect. Romans 12, verse 2.
Thank you very much. So that's the point. Or we have all the messages in your brain, but now we have to evaluate and we have to find out what is God's will, what is proper, pleasing, and perfect. So we are not called to just conform to this world. But when these messages all come and we do not process on it, then we just conform to the world. The world is making us. I can tell you, advertising, Coca-Cola, but also the preachers and so on, they will shape you when you not do the process of evaluating and the process of reflection of what is coming in your brain. So, and then you say you have to reduce to what is proper, pleasing, and perfect. So you have to, throughout all the thing, and as you see, the media, I put really small, most of what's we have in the media, we can throw out again, but we have to test it. And a book is bigger, you can see that. So mainly, I think as well, the Bible, the book, we should hold that. We test everything to that, and what is not proper, pleasing, and perfect, we should throw out. But we have to do it. Otherwise, we have a mess in our brain, and in the end, we don't know exactly what we believe and why we believe what we believe. So let's come to, I think that's very important to understand this onion culture model. And probably you saw that before, but actually, when you understand that, then probably we understand why we do this teaching. So first of all, we have the out layer is the material reality. So I give an example. Let's say we have outside reality, it's HIV problems in Africa. So what is now the conclusion, this problem, a visible problem in society? So the solution from the West, from the UN is we need money to make to make teachings, to make education for safe sex, that they learn, the Africans, when they have sex, that they do safe sex. And we need money for doing that, and we need money for buying the condoms, because it's too expensive for the Africans. When we not give it for free to them, they will not use it. So I mean, that's a solution out of a material world. But the problem from a Christian point of view, it's not that have safe sex. the solution is not to have safe sex. So the solution is behavior, have a right behavior. When we would say there is no sex outside of family, we solve the problem. Or probably not 100%, but mainly we will solve it. I'm almost through. I mean, there are probably some cases, but actually we will solve the problem. But why we not have this solution from the UN or from the Western world or from the one who can give the money? Because they don't have the value for it. They don't see that as a value that you have only sex in your in your marriage. So for them, they want to have free sex. This is what they have. The value is we are individual, free individual. We can do whatever we want. So that would be a limitation that is really against our culture, our ideas. So that is their value, the individualism. But why do they have the value? Because they believe it, or it comes from their belief. Their belief system create values. So they believe in free sex, in individualism. They don't believe in God anymore, and therefore they not can set the values. But where the beliefs comes from, it's the worldview, and this is the interesting part. Is this what we now talking about? The worldview. All the messages that come into our brain are stuck in our brain. And when we hear it 2 or 3 or 4 times, then we start to believe it. And then this belief will create the values. And these values create the behavior. Or let's say, you cannot behave in a right way when you not have a value who judge you that you do it wrong. Do you get me? I mean, the problem is still, sometimes you have value and you not handle according to value. Okay, that's another problem. But when you don't have value, you cannot judge your wrong behavior according to something. You need this measurement. So, and therefore nothing will change. So it's really important. But if we want to change something, we have to start in our worldview. We have to start in our evaluation and reflection, what's coming in our brain. If we not do that, then we should not wonder why nothing changed. And we have then take it in, reflect what is wrong, and so therefore we can change, and we start to believe something different. We can change our values, and then we can change our behavior, and in the end we can change even nations. So yeah, I think this model, what is created, is really good. I would not say it's absolute, but it can really help to understand how change really can happen. So let's come now to the real issue. I mean, to reflect, to do this process, you need time. So taking time, it's really hard. So as a leader, it's actually very hard, because naturally leaders want to see actions. They want to see process. They want to see something happen, going on, momentums. And but we need to take time. When you just running around, there is no growth. A growth will not happen automatically. So according to this model, but I believe strongly in that. When just the messages come in, then the world is creating you, the leader, not the leader is creating his environment, what actually is our task to do. So therefore, it's very important to do that. I learned, the first thing that I learned in my leadership training 20 years ago was leaders are not running. Someone who is leading is not running. So the point is, when you run around and you are not a leader, then the circumstances will lead you. So we need to make time for reflections. I do that every morning. And some people say to this quiet time, but it should be not so quiet. It should be time with God, where you have time to reflect. And sometimes I don't have the time, of course. It's always can happen, and other values are really important. Let's say my son is also he has to go earlier, and I spend some time with my son, and I don't have time to do that because my value for relationship is probably higher in the moment than have every day my reflection time. But I have my reflection time. Then first I think about what did I do yesterday. And then I start to write it down and say, yeah, was it good? Can I learn something? What was bad, or what should I do not? And so I start to reflect that and write it down every morning, or almost every morning. And then I start to look further to this day and say, what can I change? What can I do different? And let's say an example. So I think, yesterday I didn't have time for my stuff. I was just running around, was so busy. It is not good. So when you really want to build a team, you need to have time for your stuff. So please, Father, forgive me. And I put in my daily agenda, so I want to take time for my stuff. Can you see that? So we need this time. And of course, my quiet time is then also just does not belong to the teaching directly, but I always then go through my values or take my values, and then I also read and study something from the Bible before I then really go through my schedule, what I have for today, and think about that. But I think what I want to point is this reflection of what you did and what you do and what you can do different is so important. So first of all, we have to learn, if you want to go into the process, we have to learn to remember. So how can we remember? So I said before what science say, when you have it 3 times, 4 times, you start to remember a message. But when it's just one time, it's really hard to remember the message. So what do you do to remember the messages, what you can learn? So let's say I do this training that you do here on with the Leaders for the Future. So what can you do that you can remember it? Also, first is we have to listen carefully. We have to be fully there. When you're not fully in a teaching, in a preaching, forget it. Just take out, he said that and he said that. I mean, you not really learn something, and you not really know a lot when you're not fully be there and listen carefully to what is said. And even it's not a good teaching, it could be, sometimes it's not a good teaching, yet then you can learn not do it in this way. You can learn always something. There is no excuse not listen to a teaching. Of course, we cannot do it all the time. Sometimes there's other things, and I'm not fully in a preaching. I mean, I confess that totally, but then I don't learn something. That's the point. So I have to try to understand what was said, and not just say, okay, I like this, I like that, or so. Really to try to understand. If you not understand it, then you have, let's say in a book, you don't understand it, you have to read it again. You have to ask question. Sometimes, I mean, what I do when I read a book, I do not understand it. Mainly, I do now a study in the university, and sometimes it's so complex. I take it and put it in artificial intelligence and ask the machine, can you summarize for me? What does it say? And then I get, yeah, now I understand it. But I think it's really important that when you not understand it, then you cannot really learn something from it. So next is you need to set priorities. We cannot remember everything. So we have to learn how you prioritize. And for me is mark what you learned, what was important for you. are reading most of my book online. And so I can, in my online reading, I can Kindle, probably you know that. I can mark it. And then in the end, I can send all the marks to my email. And so I have a summary from the whole book and I can go through again. And I do it with every book that to remember, I go through it and then I mark again what I really want to hold on. But we have to learn also when you listen to a teaching, that you take your pen, write down, and then later go through to really remember it. This week in a teaching, so somebody interrupt me and say, can I have a soft copy from you? Because I have here nothing to write. And so I thought, okay, of course you can have my soft copy, my PowerPoint, but I think everybody needs to write it down, and it needs discipline. But when you really want to remember that, then you have to write down the important thing that you see. And then write in your textbook, you can only put it in practice what you remember. So this is a really important process to remember the right thing. And when you go into when I do now my MBA in the university, I think I do that, I take it honestly. And so I mark that, I go in, even I think the teaching is not now my topic or so, but really go into it and start to write it down. And when I'll write down from one chapter and I go through again, then it makes much, much more sense for me than when I just read the book. Good. Then we come now to the evaluation. So you have now things that you remember, and now you have to reflect on them. So reflecting question. So I always have these 5 questions. Reflect on what you experienced. So you have some notes, you have some that you can reflect on. The second thing is ask the question, what is good? So scientists found out that things that are good, you can remember hard, you cannot so good remember. You need 3 times hear the message that you remember things that are good. But when things are bad, then when you hear it once, then it's stuck in your mind. So, and I think we are often so critical. We are often look to the negative and forget the good thing. Therefore, I always start with the good thing first. And also when you give feedback to somebody, then start first with the good thing and not with the bad thing. Give a compliment first. And when somebody would give you a feedback and start with the bad things, you would not appreciate it. I'm sure that you would appreciate it. But when somebody starts with a compliment, start with something that was good, then you're open then to listen to the others. And I think that's a biblical Christian way. Really see the goodness of God, look to the good thing, and see what God is doing, and not just what's happened and what is not good. So therefore, that's my first question. The third question is then, what can be done better? And there is always things that can be done better. Let's say when I do it my personal time, then of course I go through my experience. But when I hear a teaching, then I reflect on the teaching and say, okay, yeah, he had a good point, but probably we can extend that a bit, or we can do it a bit differently, or it was a good point, but the presentation was not so good. And so think about what can be done better. The fourth thing, what should be done, what should not be done anymore. This is also very important, that we come to the brutal facts and say, okay, this was a mistake and we don't want to do it anymore. And this is also when you give a feedback, then honest feedback is when something is really wrong, that you also can say to this person, it was wrong. But so start with what is good, what can be done better, and then come to the conclusion and really address that, what is really not good. And the last one is always, then how can I go on? So what do I do now with my analyzing, with my interpretation? What is my practical application? And this I write down in my booklet. So coming to step one, the reflecting, also reflect on it, and you need time for that. Think about what you heard and what you have in your notebook. And what is really important, what do I feel, what do I know, and what do I think are different things. So probably you think, it was so bad, but actually, what do you really know about it? So the emotions are always stronger than your thinking. So then you have to, okay, I mean, I didn't like the teaching probably, but because you didn't like the teacher. Or you have a conflict or so, and your emotions go high. But actually, when you start to think about it, then, yeah, he said really good things. So learn not put your emotions first. So a good leader can bring emotions, and thinking together. And not that emotions or feelings are wrong, but they can really bring us in a wrong way. Then we just reflect on, do I like it or do I not? But we should really try to understand, what does he say, or what is really, what do I know exactly about it, and not just what I feel about it. And then, of course, what do I think now about that? So this is a good understanding to understand that there are 3 different levels. How did I change my thinking? I always ask the question, does it change something in my thinking, or was it just what I believed before? And so we like things that we already believe the same. So we like it, our emotions go high. He said the same thing that I anyway believe. Or does it change something? Do I disagree with it? And this can be very important, because it can bring a change in your thinking. As long as you only take in what you like, you will not really change. So that's a question who can help. There are other questions that you also can raise. Compare it to your values, and does it fit to the Bible? So I always ask that, yeah, okay, think about, where do I see that in the Bible? Does Jesus Christ spoke about that? Or why do they think that this is right? And so I compare that to the Bible and to my values. And of course, I ask where my values are coming from as well. So write down what you discovered in your textbook. And then I write down what I discovered. But to really end the story, we have to debate and share it with others, that is really become real. So evaluation, where you only do it in your textbook, cannot really be really real. It becomes real when you start to go out and share it with others. And therefore, we put this small group. Our idea is that you meet in small groups to discuss about it, because I think that's one of the most important things, to reflect on that teaching and do it. And it's become a reality. And when these, what you let in, then really get tested through others and will stay, then you really have a strong fundament of what you are really believing and know what is true. So that's step 1. Step number 2, what is good? So what is good? Why was it good? Why did I like it? It's also a good question, because sometimes people will discover that when you just say, you did a good teaching, it was so good. But the question, why was it good? So when you not tell the people why, then it's actually a bit fake. Or and really, we have to find out, why do we think it was good? And so this is giving the feedback, but also when we do personal reflection, then always ask that question. Next one, were you excited and why? Why I was emotional about it? Probably negative or positive, but why? Ask the question, why was it? Why does it, I think this is so amazing and is so good. What does it bring me to these emotions? And these are very good questions to ask. Or what fits the value? What fits the value of the Bible? So probably you say you observe something and say, okay, it was not so good. But probably first can you ask? But probably there are some in who really fits to the Bible. So looking first at that before you find the critics. And so I try to find first the values that are good. A good question to ask is also, does it help people or myself? I always go from the point adding value to people, adding value to society, to businesses, so is God's perspective of a growth, or that's what is his perspective, his direction. So in all the debates that I have, does it really help me, or does it help people, or otherwise I don't have to think too much about it. And anyway, what we have to learn is there are two circles. One is the circle of concern. I already once said that to you. One is the circle of concern. One is the circle of influence. And the concern, we can be concerned about so many things, but it will not change something. It will not add value to people. When I think about that, I cannot change Sudan and the Ukraine, and I cannot change the war in Niger. I mean, you can research and Google and do everything to find out the truth, but does it really change something? And I would say no. So, and this is the circle of concern, but what is the circle of influence? And invest your time where you really can influence something, where you really can change something. And therefore, I always ask the question, and things that not concern, that it's not in my influence, in my circle of influence, I will not spend too much time on that. What can I learn from it? What should others know from it? What should I or others apply? And so good question that you can ask, and then you find out, okay, there are good things in it, and this I should apply, this I can learn, and focus on the good things. So the next one would then be, what can be done better? What can be researched better? Probably you say, okay, I did a teaching, but I have to research it much better because I made a bit mess, or I didn't give all the details, I could not answer the questions, and so on. Or where does it need more help to improve? Probably I need some help from others to improve. I can do that in my personal reflection, but also in a reflection of a course or so. In all that, I say probably I need to study a bit more to really understand the topic, and so on. Where can I really improve? Probably just need more time for going, researching, and doing all the stuff. So there is always a thing that you can do better. And also when you give a feedback to a person, then when you say the good things and why it was good, then tell them what can they improve, what they can do better. Let's say, I mean, you did a really good presentation, but the PowerPoint had too much text, and it was a bit confusing. So therefore, it's better when you really can put it in a nice way that there is not too much text, and people can focus really on the important thing. So help them to improve. People also would like that extremely when you say next to them what was good, where they can improve in a positive way. So next step 4 is then really focus on the brutal facts. What should you not do? And what was not good? Yes, but question is why it should not be done anymore. Why was it not good? So when you don't know the why, don't give a feedback to anybody, you should not do it anymore. It is really not good. So you have to find a way also in your self-evaluation or so, when you give a feedback to the course here, and so don't tell it that was not good, you should not do that anymore. Give the why, help the people to understand what was not good. And it's so frustrating when you give a feedback to leaders or so and say, it was not good. and then you, why was it not good or so? I always advise my people, my staff, if you say something is not good or so, then bring me two options how I can change what was not good. So that they not come first with what was not good, they will also bring then two options, how can we change what was not good. And so they have to focus on the why. Do you understand me? That's the why. They see, okay, this was not good. So when they understand why was it not good, they can think about a solution. So I help them to understand the why. Good. Then the fifth step is a conclusion. What can I do now? And I write this down in my booklet, what will change practically when I believe it. So when I not will change something, I will leave it out and I will not focus on that. What do I want to put in practice? What do I want to hold on? What concrete do I change? Sometimes I have really concrete steps to change. What do I have to learn? Do I have to do more research, study further? Where do I need help, need teamwork? But when we not come to this conclusion, people, I believe strongly in it. I do since 20 years university's course. I'm really equipped in teaching and mainly in helping students to develop, to change their thinking. And I think when we not reach this point here in level 5, there is not really a change. There will be no change. And then we don't have to wonder why nothing will change. And I think this is so important to do, so extremely important. So reflection can be done, of course, with self-reflection, time with God every day, what I explained to you, or reflection in your team. When we have a team, we need to do this reflection as a team. What was good, what was not good, and what we leave out. And so I always go with this team to this question: what was good, what was not good, what we should leave out, where we can improve, what we should leave out, and then come to the conclusion what we change now. When a team not coming to the point, then they don't have to wonder that nothing has changed. And as well, you can do that in your family, in your work. And as well, you have to do that in your studies, in your inputs. When you really want to learn something, you have to do that when you study something. It's just to have inputs, it will create a mess in your brain with a lot of information. So you need to reflect on the messages and kick out what should not belong to you in your brain. Then you know, when you do that, then you know what you believe and why you believe what you believe. And you know what you don't believe and why you don't believe it. That's the conclusion out of it, but it needs a process, a reflection, measurement according to you, or to the Bible and the value that you have to really find out. Otherwise, you are just a slave of society, a slave of the business companies who want to sell you something about from the pastor who share the prosperity gospel, and so on and so on. This is a process that we as a leader have to do, and we have to help our students also to go this process. So when you do that, coming back conclusion to the culture onion, you have order in your brain. And then you know why you believe what you believe. Then you can build up values that are right for your for your business, for your team, for a country. A country has a constitution, and constitutional values that are created out of the belief system. And therefore, our Western society was Christianity, their belief, and therefore we have the values in our constitution. And so then next, you can measure then your behavior according to the the values. And when behavior is difficult, or there is a mistake, you are able to measure the behavior and be able to change. Let's say when you have a constitution, you create laws in a country, and these laws represent the values. So they say what's happened when you not hold the values, then you get a punishment. And so if somebody then behaves wrong and drive too fast on the highway, so he get a ticket. But when you don't have values, you cannot create a law. And when you have no law and you cannot really get a punishment, then there is no right and no wrong. And in the end, you ask why that does nothing change. So this is the process that we are called to do. And in the end, you are able to change yourself, your family, your communities, and the end, the whole nation. So this is what we are called to. And in the end, before this, and then you now can jump in, and as well, you can give a feedback. I come to an example that we do in the School of Biblical Christian Worldview. So probably you heard already, Simon also mentioned it, that we have this, that we have the School of Biblical Christian Worldview, what I mainly lead. And we have a school in Colombia, we have a school in India, in Nigeria, Malawi, and of course in Switzerland. So I'm leading this team, I'm building up these teams. And one thing what I really teach everybody, and mainly the school leaders, what they have to do to help to evaluate the school, it's very important for me. And so I just want to give you an example how I see it and how I try to do it, but sometimes it's not so easy. But this is my thing, just as an example. Also, we have a reflection on the lectures. So we not do just lecture, so we reflect after lecture. So the weekly leader, I always say, he's more important than the teacher because the weekly leader need to build up this, that he is able to ask the right question to the student, to process with the student the teaching, to ask them back, do you really understand it? And what do you think about it? Does it reflect what you believed before, or does it steer you up, or is it different to what you believe? So you need to ask questions and reflect with the students. So we have a whole catalog of questions so that we give to the weekly leaders that they can do this process. So another process is reflecting outings. We have every week we do outings. Do an outing to a business, to the parliament, to the UN, to the government, to recycling, to water treatment station, and so on, to farming, and then we do it not to have an experience. We give them a paper, and on the paper there are the questions. What was good? What can I learn from it? What was not good? And then in the end, do you have a succession for this company to change? And if my students have one, then I can give this to the company and say, probably you can do it this way or this way. But the students have to reflect their experience and not just going there, looking at, and then their life is going on. So next is the reflection, the outreaches. So we also have outreaches. Let's say we do a service in a church. We do an elderly afternoon with elderly people, or we have youth group we're watching a film, discussing, and so then always reflecting and ask this question: what was good? What we can improve? What was not good? What should we not do it anymore? And how we go on for the next time. Then we give also a feedback to the teacher, that every teacher hear from the students what they really can take with them, what was good, and mainly they focus on what was good. So not so what they can improve. This is mainly what then it's my job, then give the feedback to the teacher what they can improve and what they probably not should do anymore, or how we can go on. So then they write a journal, and in the journal they have to write what did they hear, on what do they process, what was good, what was challenging, and so on. And then I feedback, and they have these oral assignments when they do a presentation, and we always give them the feedback with the question: what was good, what you can improve, what should you leave out, or what can you do the next time better, or how can you do it the next time. So written assignment as well, we do the feedback in the same way. Evaluation of a base leader. So in every school, we give the opportunity that they can come to the base leader, and the base leader do with them the evaluation with the question: what was good, what can be improved, what should be left out, and what is your, what is when you have an idea, then please let us know what we can change. Good. Then online, we have online feedback, and we have it also made for this course. I will send you the online feedback that you can fill out. And then a self-reflection. It's very important for their character, if they can really reflect themselves about not so what they learned, but more about their behavior, about their character. And then we give them a feedback about what was good, what can be improved, what should not be done anymore, and how you can go on. And then self-reflection and commitments, they have to write a letter to God with what they really want to change, what is the conclusion for them. They write a letter, give it to us, and half a year later, we give it back to them. So just to see a practical application of reflection. And I think that is the most important thing, that I mean, the end of a teaching, in the end of a school, in the end of an experience. And so we have to reflect and have to find out how we really can change something. So thank you very much for your attention. And now the microphone is open for question. And please descend if you have addings, then this you can do it now.
Thank you, Markus, for the exciting ending of the course and the class. I want to finish with a story from King David. David was a guy who was doing reflection and also doing some evaluation. So I want to give you all the passage from 1 Chronicles chapter 29. Please go and read after this time. You can go and read on your own. But David had a little project that he was doing, he wanted to do. And the project was to build the temple, to build the house for God. And then God said, stop, you cannot build it because you have shed a lot of blood. But your son, Solomon, is going to do it after you. And then he has been thinking, what can I do? Reflecting and evaluating. And then he said, okay, I'll make preparation to make my son or my successor to become a success. So then he prepared for everything that he needed, all the gold and all the requirements to build. And then after that, when he was to pass on, he called the leaders, all the leaders who were there, because he was old and then he needed to pass on. So he told the leaders that, my son is young and inexperienced. He cannot do the job that he has to do is very, very big. So that's why I've prepared this, and he asked for input and offering from the other people to help this young king who is coming, Solomon, to succeed in a project. So what I want to say is that reflection, evaluating, and debriefing helps us to pass on the baton to the next generation, because we learn things which are really true, things which are concrete, things which can go on, and things which are not to be repeated, as Markus has said. And this reflection makes the next generation to be stronger and better than ourselves. Because what God has called us in our projects, in whatever we do, it's about discipleship. So a discipleship is a multi-generational thing. It's not focusing only on your own generation, but it's something that you have to pass on to the next generation, because we are not the first owners of this planet Earth. There were some owners before us, and they have passed the knowledge, the ideas, so that we can be where we are as a people, as nations, as projects. And after us, there'll be also people going to continue. One day, I'm going to die. Everybody will die. So we have to be able to prepare the next generation to be better. So we can only do that when we can reflect on issues and really gather important things which can help the next generation to be stronger and to be better. So I think David summarized the teaching that Markus has given us very well. He was a man that before he came into the picture of Israel, people, they were timid, they were afraid of the Philistines, and people, they were not, the army was not that strong. But when he came, at the end of his time, he has made Israel become greater, and he has trained great leaders and a great army, and they even prepared for his son Solomon to become the greatest king on earth, that there was nobody like Solomon. Why was he able to do that? Because he was a man who was reflecting, evaluating, and take the really important things, what need to be done and what not to be done, and how to go on from where I was. So that was my addition. Thank you so much for your attention. And now the microphone is open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Decent. Thank you for your story, your practical story from the Bible.